Okay, in previous videos, we kind of looked at sort of like the collective sort of like mindset of Americans when it comes to politics. We're going to focus a little bit more on like individual stuff, which is the idea of like political ideology. Political ideology is just a fancy way of essentially looking at the beliefs that people have about how government like should operate, how it should work. So again, it's just like what we think is the right way for government to operate. Think about it more like, hey, what political party do you belong to? That's what we're talking about when we're looking at ideology. It's sort of like your political thoughts and how they can sort of be classified and organized together, sort of put you with other people that think similarly to you. Um, on the AP tests, the expectation is that you will know generally three sort of specific political ideologies. This is a political spectrum. The political spectrum is just a visual representation of sort of the different like thought processes when it comes to like what people think about is the proper role of like government. Um, Important for you to look at. There's like two sort of like sort of axes for you to focus on. On the bottom is economic freedom. Um, the further you go along this spectrum, the more economic freedom that you want, right? That you feel like you should have. And the further you go down this line, um, the less you want government to like get involved and take away those freedoms. So it's like economic stuff. On this axis, it's more like personal freedom, right? So the more we go down or go up, excuse me, the axis, the more freedom you want to deal with your own personal matters. Closer to the bottom here is more sort of like regulation of like personal conduct by Americans, by government, right? So the different sort of like ideologies that you're responsible to know would be conservative. That's the first one. Conservative is often associated with Republicans. It is typically often referred to as the right because it's on the right portion of the political spectrum. If you look at where conservatives fall on the idea of lots of economic freedom. So conservatives would rather have government involved less in economics, but you'll also see that it's closer to the bottom of personal freedom. They would rather the government regulate or take a greater role in regulating like, personal conduct. Whereas if you look at like liberals, which we often associate that ideology with Democrats, and again, they're often referred to as the left because they're on the left of the political spectrum. They're at the higher point of personal freedom. So they'd rather the government regulate less personal conduct, right? They'd rather have more personal freedom. They're also on the bottom of economic freedom. So they'd rather have the government take greater steps to like regulate economic matters. Okay, so that's the difference between a liberal and a conservative. Whereas we look at libertarians, which is the third ideology that you're responsible to know, you'll see that libertarians on the economic freedom spectrum are at the end. So they are all for economic freedom and less government regulation of the economy. But you'll also notice they're at the upper end of personal freedom. They'd also maximize personal freedom and like to see the government regulate personal private conduct less. The key about libertarians, if you ever see a question about them on the AP test, is that they're generally in favor of less government involvement in all areas of society, both economic and personal stuff. So they're just all for more freedom, less government regulation. So they're the three sort of specific ideologies that you're responsible to know on the AP.